Okay, here we are at the end of the season, Jeff. It's season 5, episode 10, and it is called The End. And I'm Susie Essman.
I'm Jeff Garlin, enjoying Susie Essman and all that she has to offer.
And we start out.
You know what young people love? Young people love you.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you something anecdotally interesting.
Okay.
That, I live in New York, as we know, and on the streets of New York City, I would say I get stopped more by boys in their 20s than any other group who love Curb. Young guys in their 20s.
And by the way, most of them discovered the show from watching it with their father or parents or family. Like, it's a rite of passage almost from a father to a son. Because I didn't let my kids watch it until they were like in their early teens, like 13, 14, 15.
Yeah. There's inappropriate content. It's not the language,
by the way,
really. It's the content.
When I did daddy daycare, a lot of those kids would say to me, I enjoyed last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I would say to their mothers, I'm going, they're 8. What's going on?
It's inappropriate. It's like, he's getting a pubic hair stuck in his throat. He's all sorts of things.
You know who stops me on the street? And it's weird. Nurses.
I
get it. Every direction. Sometimes I find myself surrounded by nurses, and we're not even near a hospital.
But seriously, it's always surprising to me how these young guys, because we're an old cast pretty much.
Right. Oh no,
we're
are
a very old cast.
But what overcomes that is we're funny.
Yeah.
So you can be young or old. If it's funny, it doesn't matter. We could be in our 90s and doing this, and if it's really funny and appropriately written for people in their 90s, I think young people would watch it.
And by the way, I plan on working into my 90s.
I'll work as long as I'm having fun.
How old was Shelley when he was doing this? He was in his late 80s.
No, not late 80s.
You don't think so?
No, because I work with George Siegel, who was in his early to mid 80s, and he was sharp as a tack.
I think Shelley was in his mid to late 80s.
Well,
we could find out. We could look it up.
But also, we live in a different world where it's not weird working with someone in their 80s. 90s, I would say it's weird. I almost, I met Norman Lear years ago. He was doing a show, and he wanted he took me to lunch to be a recurring actor, a character on a show he was doing. And I remember when he said that, because I had no idea why he asked me to lunch. And I'm just like, it's Norman Lear, And when he said that to me, I really had to pinch myself. Norman Lear wants me to be a character in one of his shows. I just couldn't believe it. And the show took place in a retirement home. Uh-huh. And then I also did another
Norman Lear, who is 100.
He might be 101 now.
He might be, but he's at least 100. And didn't George Burns work until he was like 99? He was on
99,
stage?
yes. Yeah, my grandfather lived to 99. Yeah. I mean, look, I'll just going to tell you this little anecdote. So I'm on the Sony lot, and I see Norman and a friend of mine, Billy Marovitz from Chicago. They're friends, the two of them. They're in a golf cart, and I'm walking on the lot, and they stop, and we say hello. And Norman says, how you doing? I go, because I was doing Curb and the Goldbergs at the same time. And I said, I'm exhausted. I can barely move. He goes, no, moving is everything. And it's better to be exhausted than not exhausted. And by the way, at the time, he was probably 97, 98. And no kidding around, that's profoundly affected me in terms of I have complete energy when I'm not lazy at all anymore. I shouldn't say at all, but in moments of laziness. But in general, boom. Sari yesterday must have asked me for a half dozen things, which I had to get up and go across the house. I got all of them with energy, not a second thought. So
movement is good.
No, but thank you, Summarization Johnson.
Yes.
But it profoundly affected me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, he's a great role model.
By the way, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I hope this isn't the case, but for our listeners who do not know who Norman Lear is, go look it up. But Norman Lear created All in the Family, among other things.
And by the way, ironically, we're bringing him up, Maude, and that has everything to do with this episode.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, and I have a great B. Arthur story, Sandra B. Arthur story, which I don't think you know. Awesome.
I don't. All right,
okay,
we'll get
good.
to it. So we start out, you are getting out of a Prius, which is clearly Larry's Prius, and you say it's kind of small, but we established that you're buying it for your nanny, so it's fine. And then you ask Larry how much. He says, oh, whatever. And you say you'll give him the Blue Book value price.
Which, by the way,
you shake on the deal.
If I may, that's not getting a deal from your friend.
No, that's the Blue Book value price.
No, but I would not sell to a close friend of mine the Blue Book value. I would go under Blue Book value, but that's the kind of friend I am.
And that's the kind of friend Larry is not, because he accepts the Blue Book value. And even more, we find out. And you shake on the deal. And then Cheryl comes out. She's on the phone, and she announces, Lewis is out of the coma. Oh, dear. Lewis, who is played by Bill Saluga.
And Bill Saluga, as I told you, was
Ace Trucking Company.
Ace Trucking Company. Thank you. I couldn't think of it before.
Yes.
With Fred Willard out of San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. I remember, by the way, recently I watched them. They were hosting, if I'm not mistaken, the Midnight Special, that music show on Friday nights where they have comedians too. But then he went from that, and he was very good in that, to this character with a hat dressed like a gentleman from the 30s.
What was it? You can
call me Ray. You can call me Jay.
Yeah.
And he was in a lot of the Miller Lite commercials. So you saw him all over the place.
Right. And we cut to the hospital, and there's Bill Saluga yakking it up on the phone. There's going to be a party. He invites the nurse to the party. She says she'll come. And then Larry comes in and asks him,
what are you going to do about your cousin who needs a kidney?
Well, Richie?
Yeah.
Well, so we'll find him a kidney.
What about yours?
What are you, crazy? I'm not giving anybody my kidney. I just woke up. I'm going to give things out now?
That's very selfish.
Selfish?
Yeah.
And let me ask you a question. You know, I heard that you come in and out here all the time, and I don't understand that. I hardly know you. I met you briefly once at Richie's house, and they tell me you're in here all the time.
I visit people in the hospital, and I cheer them up. I go around. I do volunteer work, and I knew you were here, so I stopped in to see you.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. You don't have to cheer me up because I'm cheered up. It pays to be in a coma. I'm telling you, I've never felt so refreshed in my life.
Oh, really?
You know, those bears, they had it right. They go into hibernation, they come out like new bears.
would he give Lewis his kidney? And he says, I'm not giving my kidney. I just woke up. Then he says, Larry, I heard you've been coming around here a lot. I hardly know you. I met you once at Richie's house. And Larry said, I visit people in the hospital to cheer them up. I volunteer.
Which, by the way, another exchange, a thing of beauty. He gets nailed, and then he has an answer that you go, wow, that is so funny.
And then Lewis starts talking about how great he feels. The Bears have it right, the hibernation, et cetera, which I think must feel pretty damn good to sleep that long. And that Larry leaves, and as he's leaving, he sees Richard Lewis coming in looking horrible. He's walking with a cane.
Well, by the way, I have to say, it's beautifully lit.
Yeah.
And he comes down as a shadow. And they almost are like gunfighters, but not in terms of a gunfight. It's a turning gunfight of like, Larry and him where
walking towards.
You're walking past each other. It's really cool. I think that scene was shot well.
And Lewis looks like death warmed over.
Well, I told you that people would ask me after that season aired if Richard was really sick.
I know. And Lewis just stares at him, gives him like a death stare. And then Larry is back in the house with Cheryl, and he starts talking about, he was the specter of death, and he's haunted by that look that Lewis gives him. And Cheryl's not really listening to him, and she's just like, have you seen the Sopranos DVD case? And Larry's like, you're barking up the wrong tree. I have a system. I put the case on top of the player, and then when it's done, he's got a whole system. And then Larry starts going off on this whole tangent about he's not even that friendly with Lewis. Yeah, he's known him for 44 years, but they're really more like acquaintances. They're not really close friends, which we know is bullshit because they're best fucking friends.
No, but by the way, when he does it, it's so clearly he's trying to massage out that all he wants is Cheryl to go, you know what? He's not your friend.
He's not your friend. But Cheryl
Yeah.
goes right back to the DVD. Cheryl's
Yes.
fixated on the DVD. And then
Yeah.
the phone rings, and it's Omar Jones. He wants Larry to come to his office the next day. He's got some news for him. So next day, Larry is in Omar's office, and he was, in fact, adopted, Omar tells him. Mr. and Mrs. Cohn from Bisbee, Arizona, they're awaiting his call. And then Larry is in the elevator. The elevator opens, and there's Steve Rash right up front, our
Yes,
editor,
Yeah.
acting as an extra. And you see Larry's just dazed and confused. And he walks into a store and finds Cheryl in the dressing room, half naked. And that, there's silently he's telling her.
Well, no, but by the way, as I was watching that, I thought, yeah, there's a lot of clever wordplay, and Larry could fill in those, black and white boxes, which tells you what you're hearing. But I thought that was really cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we shot it to just be part of a montage.
I think so too.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like they're having a real conversation. They're acting, but it reminded me of a silent movie, like legitimately.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like that. Felt like no.
Well,
it really
we knew
was
exactly what was going on.
I know,
we
but
didn't need the
still,
dialogue.
It was really interesting.
And then we see Larry on the plane, sitting in the exit row, and he's freaked out, and he tells the flight attendant he can't sit here.
All we need to know is that you're willing to assist passengers in the event of a non-traditional landing.
I cannot be of any help whatsoever in any kind of non-traditional landing or any traditional landing.
Did you read the brochure?
Read the brochure? I can't read that brochure. It's Chinese to me. I'm sorry. Are you Chinese? Oh, you look a little Asian. I'm sorry. But it's just an expression. But I don't think you are Chinese. You look maybe Thai. I'm not sure.
Okay, is it the seat or are you just scared to
No,
fly?
I choke under pressure in any kind of game, basketball. If I was on the foul line and towards the last 5 minutes of the game, I would miss the entire rim.
Okay,
I couldn't even hit the rim because I was choking.
He could not be of any help whatsoever. He chokes under pressure. He doesn't know how to do the thing, the pull down. And he's the woman sitting next to him who he thinks is Thai and not Chinese. And he's got a thing with
First
Asians.
Chinese? No, probably Thai. Thai?
Yes.
Not Chinese.
And she
Thai.
nods. She's an extra. She
No,
doesn't.
no, she doesn't nod until after the
in the end.
Yeah, yes, and then that's really funny.
And then we're in Bixby, Arizona, in a beautiful little yellow house with a porch with a nice little white picket fence in the front. And he rings the bell, and his father answers, who doesn't look all that much older than him. And they hug. And they start to tell the whole story. He just came out of the Navy.
By the
so
way,
they did have him very
the
young.
actress playing Larry's mother is June Squibb.
Who is June Squibb?
June Squibb was, shortly thereafter, an immensely popular character actor. She worked constantly in big movies, and she worked a ton. She really broke through in a movie with Bob Odenkirk called Nebraska. And yeah, she was great in that movie, and she had, I don't know if she's still, I don't know what's going on with her now, but I can tell you the run that she had for a while. It was
Good
like
run.
it was like a Betty White run. Everybody wanted June Squibb. And so I thought, wow, we got her before
She was
anyone.
June Squibb.
Yeah. But no, I thought Susie's not going to know this, and I did.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So the father tells him he just got out of the Navy. They had no money. That's why they gave him up for adoption. They were so young. That's why he doesn't look that much older. They're probably, 19, something like that. And then Larry says, do you know anything about the people who adopted me? And they met, and the husband was fidgety, and the mother was very loud, and she ruled the roost. And, it all sounds like Larry's family. And the mother is from Illinois, and the dad is from Virginia with a English Scotland background and been in this country for hundreds of years. And then Larry's getting a little suspicious. He's like, how do you spell Cohn? How do you spell your last name?
How do you spell your last name?
C-O-N-E.
And they say C-O-N-E. It's not C-O-H-E-N. Cohen, the Jewish way. It's C-O-N-E. And then the religious music comes up, and Larry sees a picture of Jesus on the wall, and he says, oh my God, I'm Gentile, which would be quite a shock to any
And
of
then
us, I think.
And this is one of the great cuts ever on our show. When we go from this to what we see next.
He's in the car. He gets out wearing a TGIF T-shirt and some kind of straw cowboy hat.
But also, it's tucked into shorts with a belt.
Yes, tucked into
and
shorts
white
with a
socks
belt.
with his shoes. But it is so on the money. Just nailed it.
Well, this whole run of him in Bixby, Arizona, is it Bigsby? Whatever. I found delightful. I just like the whole
small town, no Jews. By the way,
right.
He's really walking around Mayberry.
Correct. And he meets Dave, the Chevrolet
And everybody,
dealer.
by the way, if I may, everybody is friendly and welcoming, just
That's
like
right.
Mayberry. Yeah.
He meets Dave, the Chevrolet dealer, and Jenny and Wilson.
Wait, no. Take a step back. He does, like, there's that stupid humor because he pulls up with his father in a Kia.
Yeah.
And so this is our friend Dave. He's a Chevrolet dealer. Why my dad didn't come to you for a car? Why is he driving this thing? But he says it in a chuckling way.
Yeah.
And
in
it
that
was really,
way, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sees a guy selling a Prius, and it says a 2004 Prius, $21,680. And Larry asked the guy, and the guy says, well, that's the Blue Book value. And Larry says, I sold a Prius to my friend, and he paid me $5,000 less. And we know that was you. And the mom says, oh, Larry, what's wrong? And Larry says, my friend took advantage of me. And the mother says, give him the benefit of the doubt. Experience love and forgiveness. That's what Jesus would do.
And then he goes, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we see.
And by the way, the guy at the car is played by Pat Finn, who is one of the funniest people I've ever known from Chicago and delightful. And he plays it perfect because his reaction to Larry, when Larry says he got ripped off, is like, oh, pal, you just,
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I want to also add, this is just a tidbit. Unless I'm on camera, when we go film anywhere, and this was 2.5 hours away, staying overnight there when we were shooting all these
Where
scenes.
was it?
Up the 101, way past Valencia and stuff.
Yeah.
Literally, 2 or 3 hours away, staying over. When we do these things, and also all driving scenes that I'm not in, I just don't feel unnecessary. Like, to go up there, and I let the biggest one for me was Larry with Scorsese on the roof in New York. Now,
Well, that was in New York.
yes, but
Yeah.
when we're talking about the planning of it, certain people who didn't need to be there made sure they wanted to be there to put on a floor show for Scorsese and spend. I, who love Scorsese, I just said, I'm out. I'm good. I'm going to stay home.
And I could have gone to set because I live in New York, but I didn't.
Well, yeah, by the way, if I lived in New York, certainly I'd go by the set and I'd work. I'd work if I lived in New York.
So next we see Larry. Next we see him fishing. And then they start beating the fish. He and his father take clubs and start beating the fish. And then we see him duck hunting or bird hunting. And he's horseback riding. He looked good on that horse.
Well, by the way, I don't know if that was actually him because it went from someone riding towards, I have to watch it again, someone who looks just like Larry riding. See, I'm telling you, I would bet everything that wasn't him on that long ride.
We'll have to ask
because,
him.
Well, no, reason being is that we don't see the horse stop. There's the ride in and then cut to Larry where the horse is taking 2 or 3 steps and stops. So I think
see. Yeah,
that was the part that was Larry. The other,
Right.
with body doubles, depending on what's going on, and Larry's had some right on the money body doubles. You don't know when you're watching, unless it's a Tom Cruise movie. You know everything is Tom Cruise, which I've never understood. Who likes Tom Cruise more or enjoys his movies more based on him doing the stunt? If anything, all his stunts. If anything, when you're watching, it takes you out of the movie because you're going, wow, Tom Cruise really did that.
Yeah, but a lot of, like, Burt Lancaster used to do his own stunts. Gene Kelly used to do his own stunts.
Let's take a step back. Think of the Mission Impossible movies and anything that Burt Lancaster, or especially Gene Kelly, ever did in their career. The Mummy, like all these movies, these are big fucking stunts. And I mean, he's literally in the air doing stuff on a plane. All
You know
that
what I
shit.
think? He's taking a job away from a stuntman is what he's doing.
Well, by the way, there's that too, but I think that he befriends stuntmen and they help him. He,
Yeah.
by the way, I bet you on set, he hangs with the stunt people, the
Could be.
action people. Tom likes being in the middle of the action. And may I also say about Tom Cruise, same age as me, which people might not think is possible, same age as me. And from the moment I first saw him, which is this movie about young cadets, oh shit. But it was like this movie about young cadets, Sean Penn, like a lot of young actors in it. But just like Julia Roberts in Mystic Pizza, because I remember that experience, you look at these people and you go, wow, they're movie stars. I'm curious what happens because they're fucking movie stars. And Julia Roberts had a bigger role, but nonetheless, Tom Cruise in a medium at best size role, you watch it and you go, dude's a movie star. And by the way, I'm sure other people thought that. And he truly is, like a lot of people, you know, he's a movie star. No, this dude is an out and out movie star. It's a level above other people where it's like fucking Tom Cruise. And I like his movies. I never thought I liked the sequel to Top Gun. I loved every minute of it. But I was
I'm
wearing
glad you
cotton.
enjoyed it.
I was wearing cotton, which was very comfortable.
All right. So he's horseback riding, then he's helping his
By
mom
the
with
way,
the wool.
that was more than a tidbit. That was a tangent.
That was a tangent. Then he's fixing the roof. Then he's chugging beer with the chaser. Then they're having dinner, and they have to say grace first. And he learns how to do the cross.
But
nose,
hold on.
toes, watch,
The
wallet.
end- yeah, but the cross, he makes a joke to his dad. I keep the keys and the wallet on the other side.
Yeah.
But also, he's so into learning
Totally
the cross.
into it. And
Yeah.
then they're at church and they're singing "Go Tell It on the Mountain," and he's joyous. He's having the time. He loves being Gentile. And the minister's sermon is about an important relationship with your friends. Don't take your friends for granted.
No, he
and
talks
a
about
bond of
family.
friendship
But he's
But then
talking
he-
about
then he-
family. He goes, let's talk about this one today.
That's
Friends.
right. Friends.
And then it's
and
all
the
on the
bond
money.
of friendship and generosity and spirit. And am I a good friend? How have I sacrificed for my friend? And you see Larry thinking, and you know what he's thinking. He's thinking about Lewis's kidney. And then he says, Mom and Dad, I have to go. And that's a real sacrifice because he's really enjoying himself there in Bixby, Arizona. He's having the time of his life.
But one of the great things comes next.
Well, he's wearing a blue blazer with a red sweater vest and a tie.
No,
and
I'm
he's
not
on
even
the
saying that.
plane.
Yes.
He's on the plane in the exit seat. And Bob Whitey is sitting on the plane with him, and who's one of our directors. And the flight attendant comes over to tell him, oh, I'll move you, because she remembers him. Oddly enough, it's the same flight attendant. You could depend on me. I won't let you down. And be a dear and get me a gin and tonic, he says to her.
By the way, no anxiety because he's not Jewish.
No,
None. No
not anymore. It
Spelkeys.
completely
He's
leaves him.
changed it. Yes.
He changes so quick once he
Yes.
finds out that
Yes.
it's C-O-N-E.
Yes.
John Heyman used to have a joke about that in his act, about David Cohn, the pitcher, C-O-N-E. Anyway, he comes back, he goes to Lewis, he hugs him, and he says to him, you could have my kidney. And then he pulls, and then he sees Lewis, he says, what is that putter in Lewis's doorway? And he pulls the putter out of the bag. He's like, where'd you get this? I used this putter a few weeks ago, and it changed my life, and you can't find them anymore. I love this putter. Can I borrow it? And Lewis says,
I don't think so.
What?
I've lost a lot of clubs. I've lent them out through the years.
I'm not going to do anything. I'll take really good care of it, believe me.
I can't lend them out
What do you,
anymore.
I don't get that. Come on. I'll take good care of it, I promise.
No, I'm sure you will, but I prefer you didn't.
I'm about...
What?
I completely understand. I respect your decisions.
Really?
I still love you.
he's giving him his kidney, and Lewis won't
But
let him
also
borrow
a very
the putter.
tough acting thing, because I think 99% of people would say, take it, it's yours.
Of
but
course.
Richard, the way he's objecting is so believable and so right on the money. I love it. I love when actors rise to the occasion of the nuance,
Right.
you know, because it's a difficult thing to play.
Well, we also see Larry says, I'll take good care of it. And he's about to say to him, I'm giving you a fucking kidney. And
he
and then
stops himself.
Then he catches himself because he's Christian now.
What would Jesus do?
What would Jesus do? And then he goes home and he's like, I love you, Cheryl. And Cheryl's like, what are you wearing? And then Larry says, I want to have children.
So good. Lots of them. But also he keeps kissing her in the most uncomfortable. She's like completely confused.
She doesn't know what the hell is going on. He's wearing a sweater vest.
Those are my favorite kisses they've ever had.
Yeah.
Because it's just insane.
And she's like, well, that deserves a bigger conversation if we want to have children. And, take your tie off. And Larry says to her, I know why God saved me from drowning that time. He wanted me to give Lewis my kidney. And then we were in the hospital, and the orderly comes in, and it's Craig Robinson, who everybody will recognize.
It's so much fun to
see in the early.
No. But by the way, he's on the show because of me. He's great, so don't get me wrong. But to see friends like Bobby Lee and Craig Robinson, and I mentioned Pat Finn, like these are, it's like legit it's like if I just got my cronies on, and who the fuck are they? That ruins the show. So I cared passionately about the show first. But to be able to have someone I really believed in and loved, the best guy, Craig Robinson, I love him. And anytime I see him on screen, I'm so damn happy. Best dude. And so to see him in this, and by the way he plays this is really the way Craig Robinson plays shit. That's why right from the get-go, if you're watching this, you go, oh, that guy's got something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Craig comes in and Larry says,
God will watch over me.
He ain't watch over the last guy. But you're a lucky man. You're giving away a kidney. The recipient is going to love you, man.
Really?
You're going to have your own personal slave, is what it is. You could be in China and sneeze, and he'll bring you a tissue.
Well, that may be true of others. I don't think with him, though. He wouldn't even loan me a putter, actually.
You giving him a kidney, he wouldn't loan you his putter?
Well, people get very attached to their golf clubs. It's understandable.
You're not attached to your kidney? That's fucked up, man.
And Craig says, well, your recipient is going to love you. He's going to be your own personal slave for the rest of your life. And Larry says, he wouldn't give me his putter. So he's still petty, Larry, deep underneath. And Craig, well, the orderlies, his name's not Craig, says, that's fucked up. And then they wheel them both out. Lewis and Larry are both wheeled out with their things on their head.
Well, by the way, again, shot beautifully. The way they come down the aisle, first off, where they meet, and they're coming down, and Larry, despite the 4-iron, the orderly mentions the putter.
Yeah.
Not
right.
Larry, because he's not Jewish.
Right. But Larry told the orderly.
Yeah, but he mentioned it because it's the real Larry underneath, and we find out he's not adopted in the moment. Yes.
Well, yes. And Richard says, this is the greatest thing. I'll do anything for you for the rest of your life. And the orderly, Craig Robinson, says anything except loan you a putter. And then we see Omar Jones comes running in. Mr. David, it was a big mistake. You're not adopted. And Larry's like, he's not adopted. All of a sudden, he's Jewish again. He tries to get off the table and nicks the whole thing. And then we cut to 2 months later. And you see Richard on the beach with a very hot girl in a bikini and living it up. And then we cut to Larry is in the hospital on life support. And standing around are Matt and Cheryl and you and me. And Larry says to you,
Dr. Jack Gallagher.
Dr. Jack Gallagher.
His manager, and I forget that actor's name. And there might be, is there one other person?
Well,
no.
the rabbi comes in later.
The rabbi,
but he's not there yet.
Yes.
And then Larry says to you, you lowballed me on the car. I need you to give $5,000 to Cheryl. And
by the way, if I may, I've talked about this before. That was the moment that Larry and I filmed our stare down. Which, as I've told you, because of he and I, it did not work.
That doesn't work there.
No.
Yeah.
By the way, one take. And we looked at each other and laughed. And we go, no way, does not work. Because it was so forced and weird and
the
stupid.
stare down is for the guests. It's not for us.
No, I know. It makes no sense for intimate people to have stare downs.
And we had one. It was uncomfortable for me. And then Larry says,
I avoided good deeds my whole life. Turns out I was right.
Hi. Larry, the rabbi is here.
Rabbi. Rabbi. Larry, what can I say? I'm still young, Rabbi. I thought when God takes someone young, they're usually a good person. That's the one thing I had going for me.
Well, God is apparently making an exception in your case.
I avoided good deeds my whole life. I was right. And then the rabbi comes in, and Larry says to the rabbi, I'm still young, Rabbi. I thought God only takes somebody young. They're usually a good person. That's the one thing I had going for me, is that I'm not a good person. And the rabbi says, God apparently is making an exception in your case. And Larry's like, I could have traveled more, but I can't stand packing. And the rabbi says, anyone you'd like to ask for forgiveness. Then we go into this montage, which I did not love.
But no, hold on. What I didn't love is, here's what I'm thinking. From Richard Lewis on the beach, which seemed like it's a weird thing, but I get it comedically, but it's still strange. From that moment through the rest of the episode, it all feels like a dream. None of it feels real. So when we're standing, for example, Cheryl, the way it's done, she's not terribly upset.
No.
And she seems like a gold digger. Like right after he dies, she wants to know, which is so weird.
After this montage, that's what happens, where she asks.
By the way,
we'll
I
get to
really
that.
enjoyed the montage, and I'll explain later why it was there.
And what it was a litany: Porno Gill's wife, the beloved cunt, with Paul saying that.
Yeah, the last 5 seasons.
You ate the
of
baby
people that
cheeses. Irving Schwimmer calling him a cocksucker.
Yeah. But it's all the conflicts that he had over the past 5 seasons, and I'm going to explain why that was there.
Oscar, Muggsy Bogues, the Russian guy with the yarmulke.
Yeah, no, it's all there.
Cousin Andy fighting with him over the
smoking jacket. Yeah. A lot of wrestling. Marissa Winokur. How about
Marissa Winokur for the chiropractor?
His fights with her were the longest and most wrestling-like.
Hilarious.
Hilarious. She's just
Crazy
so
Eyes
brilliant.
Killer. Yeah.
Right.
So then, and when all that happens, then he says to you, he gives you.
No, hold on. The rabbi says, anyone? He goes, nope, I'm good.
Nah, yeah. The rabbi says, you have to get your life in order. Is there anybody that you'd like to, make amends to or something like that? And then we go through this whole montage in his head. And then he says, nah, I'm good.
I'm good.
And then he says to you, because it's his parting words to you, that you eat way too much mayo.
I know. What a fucking home run. He goes, if you're eating tuna salad, you don't
need it on the bread.
And I look at him and I go, I will eat less mayo.
Yes.
I will.
And then he says, you shouldn't have let him do that Seinfeld TV guide cover.
Yeah, he looked like an idiot. He looked like a dick or something like that.
Something, yeah.
And then I say, yes, it was my mistake.
Yeah, your mistake. And then he says to Nat, I'm sorry about the adoption, but Nat doesn't know what he's saying. What, you need a doctor? Nat doesn't hear him. And then the camera turns to me and I'm like, la. And he's like, eh.
By the way, I don't even know that you say lair.
I do.
You'd know better. Okay. But that is played also perfectly. I mean, the timing of it is just like you make a move, but you don't even get a half step in. And then he says,
By the way, I recall, I think I'm almost sure about this, that's not what was written in the outline. We changed it that day. In the outline, there was some confrontation between us.
A normal yelling festival.
Normal. And that day, it was just changed to the which is always better. Simpler is always better.
Although you fighting with Larry is always gold.
Well, that's a different thing, but the fight was not appropriate in this moment. Then he asked Cheryl if he could fool around a little till she got there. And he says, I know it was you about the Soprano DVD cover because I have a system. And then he flatlines. And Gallagher feels a pulse. He nods. And we see his body leave and hover above. And Cheryl goes and asks the business manager, anything you could tell me about the will?
This is what I'm saying. It's just that's not her. She cares. She loves
Right.
Larry.
Loves Larry.
And it
But she
feels
did
like
not seem that way in this. She absolutely
right.
seemed
And it
out
was
of
like
character.
out of character. Yeah.
And then you say to her, Cheryl, you don't really want the $5,000.
Right,
And she's like, yes, I do want the $5,000. And I say, just be reasonable. And he
but it's all
manipulated Jeff.
shit that but by the way, as he's floating above us watching and then he goes away, I'm telling you, that stuff that we did in the hospital room after he flatlines just seems like what would happen in a dream. Like it may have been a dream for all I know, the way he wrote it. It just didn't seem, it felt dreamlike.
It was surreal. It was
very surreal. That's what
Yeah.
this whole thing is surreal.
Fighting, and he's just above us watching, and I say he's petty in life and he was petty in death, and he just rises, and all of a sudden he's up in the clouds and he has hair. But the hair that he has is not what his hair looked like when he really had hair. It's like a straight gray. It's not what Larry looked like when I remember him having hair.
Larry having a full Jufro, not nearly as
Wouldn't
funny
really
as this
work.
hair.
Yeah.
Anytime
He's wearing a wig is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And he hates it. He hates
one of my
putting the wig
favorite
on.
photographs that I took is the Fatwa season, which we haven't got
that
to
wig
yet.
and the beard.
No, but I have a shot. It's actually going to be in my book. There's a shot. I've already put it in my shows of Larry getting put into all that by Thomas. And I have Thomas touching
is
up
our
Larry.
makeup artist.
And it's a really cool picture. Really cool. I'm very proud of that picture.
I'd love to see it sometime. And then he's in the clouds and everybody's wearing white and his guides come over, who are played by Dustin Hoffman and Sacha Baron Cohen. And they tell him they've been watching him his whole life. And there's a lot of fans up there. Ponce de Leon is actually a huge fan and can't wait to meet him. And Marilyn Monroe, huge Seinfeld fan. And all of a sudden, his mother shows up, who is played by the brilliant Bea Arthur. And she's just like,
what kind of schmuck are you? I mean, who goes around giving their kidney to people? Idiot! And I'm surprised that your father let you do such a thing. Wait till I see him again.
Why did you tell Dad not to bother me when you died? I missed your funeral.
So what? What's so important? Why were you so happy when you thought you were adopted? That's what I want to know.
I wasn't happy.
Oh, don't give me that. You were very happy.
I was not happy.
Absolutely giddy.
Kidding? No,
giddy.
I was not
You
kidding.
were giddy.
Kidding? I was not kidding.
You were giddy.
what kind of schmuck are you? Idiot, give somebody your kidney. And Larry's like, why did you tell them not to bother me when you died and I missed your funeral? Why were you so happy when you thought you were adopted? You were giddy. You were giddy when you thought you were adopted.
Now, if you go beneath the skin in this moment, he must, this relationship with his mother, which I love in this moment because we've never seen it, is me. If I was raised by a woman like that and I knew you would be instant trauma for me 24 hours a day.
Well, when I watched her, she reminded me of my character.
Right. Yes, I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So I went underneath, but she disappears. But I want to tell you the Bea Arthur story, which is great. All right. So Sandra,
she says she disappears. She just says, I'm done with, I'm not done with you yet, Buster. And then she disappears.
She disappears. And I love that whoosh that we did. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They probably had a lot of choices. But anyhow, so Bea Arthur's works one day. We only shot that one day, I think. Yeah, it was only one day. So Bea Arthur is, I'm not going to say friends, but strong acquaintances with Sandra. Sandra did her makeup, and Sandra helped her through it.
Sandra was our makeup artist at the time.
Okay, now.
Sandra Jordan
fell for anything I said. She was my favorite target, and she was one of the few targets in my life that I never told her I was kidding. I let it sit there, okay? And it just worked. You understand what I'm saying. So I don't remember the gentleman's name, and he was a gentleman, great guy. Do you remember the really tall, handsome black transpo driver? Really muscular.
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I cannot remember his name, but excellent dude. So she leaves. He's driving her home in a pass van. And after he leaves, I go, that is just great. And Sandra goes, what's great? I go, that he gets to drive her home. He is the biggest crush on her. He loves her. He's
the Arthur you're
confident.
talking about.
Yes. He's confident he can seduce her. Well, she's like, what are you talking about? I go, yeah. He wants to have sex with her badly. And he says he can pull it off. Sandra loses her shit and she runs to Aaron O'Malley, one of our producers, who I've already let in on it. And so Sandra's screaming, we got to stop him. We got to get him to come back. And B. Arthur died shortly after that.
Aww.
So she was, I know, a great one. But she was, this was a moment that this is me being
This was probably the last thing she did. Then if she died shortly after that.
It might be.
And she was perfect casting, I think, for
perfect
Larry's
casting
mother.
and a nice lady. I'd met her once before. I knew her son, and I remember going to one of his parties, and she was there, and I just sat in the kitchen and talked with her. I had no interest in the party. I'm going to spend time in the kitchen with B. Arthur. Look at me.
So then Larry sees Ben Hogan. And Ben Hogan, the golf great, tells him, you're moving your feet. The sex offender had a good tip for you, and you didn't take the tip.
Yes.
And he's like, come out with me. I'll show you how it's done. And Larry's like, there's golf here? He's loving heaven.
But
There's
also
golf.
he says there's a lot of courses to choose from.
Right. A lot of courses. And then he says to the guides, he says, you've been around me my whole life. What happened with that spin the bottle game when I was, in fourth grade, whatever that was? And you heard my wife say I could fool around. Where do you go here to date? Is there restaurants? And if you're the guys, how come you let me eat those 7 pieces of pizza in camp that time? And Sasha is like, we can't control everything. And then he's like, then what do I need you? And he's like, what about going to the bathroom? If there's no bathroom here, pretty good. And then he asked him about
they're making him crazy, by the way, at this point.
Yeah, and then he asks about the Soprano DVD cover, and Dustin Hoffman says,
that's not a system.
Oh, is that so?
A system is that you're going to misplace the DVD, so you get some DVD jackets, just plain ones, and you have them there in case you lose. That's a system.
That's not a system.
The jackets
people
in a photo.
Misplace DVDs because they take the cover and they put it someplace else.
And the people that misplace the DVDs have extra DVD jackets. No, that's a system.
That's not a system.
Listen to your guy.
A little bit of respect,
you take the DVD.
Oh, Mr. Great Guy who let me do that TV Guide cover.
Fuck you.
Came out like, fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
All right, okay.
it's behind the couch, and you didn't look for it because you have a system, but the system is plain jackets. They start fighting about the system because Dustin says
by the way,
system
it's
is
really
having
funny.
extra jackets, extra plain jackets, and it's fuck you, and blah, 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 blah. And then the guides confer. And they determine that he's not ready. He's just not evolved enough to be in this space. And it's a bad system, and they say goodbye to Larry. And Marilyn's like, where are you going? She was a very good Marilyn lookalike, by the way.
Oh, yeah. She was, by the way, very nice lady. Again, everyone's very nice. Who comes works? By the way,
Well, there've been one
I'm
or
not
two,
gonna
but
say
not
who,
many.
but there's been a very, no one famous, but some of the guest actors. I'm like, what are you thinking? I've been thinking about whether or not I tell this story, knowing about this episode. And I decided I'm going to. And Dustin Hoffman, one of my acting heroes. I loved being around him. His kids came that day. I think 2 or 3 kids. So nice. Huge fans of Curb Your Enthusiasm. They asked me in-depth questions, all that. Now, when we're filming this scene, Dustin is putting a spin on everything, like a comedy spin. He's skipping at certain points. It's just way out of tone. And I remember Larry Charles, Larry
Who
David,
directed this episode.
Yeah, Larry David and I, we conferred as like, what the fuck's going on? And then I went, wait, I've got it. And I said, his kids are here. They're super fans. He's never seen the show.
No,
he's
he
doing
hasn't.
it for his kids, which I used to do. I like Wizards of Waverly Place, the show I was on. I did it for my kids, and they were the prime age. So he's doing this for the kids. He thinks it's a TV comedy, which he doesn't get himself involved in.
Right.
Bouncing around, skipping around. So Larry Charles had to tell him, please don't do any of that. Please play it as straight as you can. And frustration with Larry, which the performance we see on screen, right on the money. Fucking beautiful. So I'm at a party. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm at a party. I was fascinated by this. And I wasn't disappointed in Dustin Hoffman when we did this. It just explained why he did it. And then he was great. So I'm at a party, and there's a semicircle around Dustin. He's talking. I join in, and he gives me a look. I go, you may not remember me. I'm on Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of the producers. And he says this to me, which knocked me off my feet. He says, your partner, your buddy, he doesn't like when other people are funny.
Oh, really?
He interpreted, and he went off, and he interpreted that note to him.
Happens not to be true, by the way.
Well, no, by the way, Larry wants everybody to be funny.
Exactly.
And he's not insecure about any of it. So he keeps going. And I thought, am I going to get into a fight with Dustin Hoffman right now?
Let it go.
Am I? Well, no. You're giving me instructions as if it's happening right now, or I'm thinking of going to his house. No, of course. I pulled away, and then I had a great story for Marla. You're not going to believe this. And then a great story for Larry. But it was interesting that that's how Dustin Hoffman, I mean, we're talking
perceived
Marathon Man, The Graduate. You know,
he did play Lenny, but he's not known for comedies necessarily.
Well,
but he did play Lenny. And Tootsie, he was hilarious in Tootsie.
But the reason being is, and I can say this, his performance in Tootsie is dead serious. He's not trying to be funny at any time. Right. As we've discussed, I know for me personally, but we play drama and comedy the same. It's up to the writer and the director to guide us. I just need to know what's going on in the scene, and then I just just talk. There's no spin. And the director will say, can you play this one a little bit angrier? You know what I mean? It's like they have to help carve it. I can't spin it and try and make it funny. And the word, Sean Penn. Sean Penn is such a good actor. The joke is he could read the phone book and be interesting, okay? And be a great actor. I am limited by what material I'm given. You give me great material, I can rise to the occasion. You give me bad material, especially comedy, there's nothing I can do. And they've asked me to put spins, and I've said,
that happens all the time. They say, well, you'll make it funny. I can't make it funny if it's not on the page.
Right. Or the idea's not there, the outline.
Yeah, I can't make it funny.
You can't. And what did I say to you before in terms of even us doing the show? And even in my relationship with my girlfriend, when I try and be funny, it fails every time. You look at me like I'm from another planet and get the fuck out of here. Which is true. And I'm not blaming you. But my point is, any time in my life that I've not trusted the material, whatever, and I've tried to be funny, big failure. Including when people say, can you say birthday wishes to my cousin? And I do it. And in the past, I've tried being funny on that, which I don't anymore. I was not funny at all.
So I'll tell you my Dustin Hoffman story. After this episode...
Does it include gentle lovemaking, or I'm not interested?
It does. I was not there, so I didn't meet him. And then I ran into him on Madison Avenue. And he was in a store, and I went over and I introduced myself. And he had no idea who I was because he never watched the show.
Right.
So, and he told me that, it goes, I'm sorry, I thought he would know because he'd been on the show, but he's like, no, I've never watched the show. And he said to me, I'll tell you something. I did the show, and Larry never sent me a gift.
Oh, dear God. Dear God.
And I was like, I've done 50 shows, and he's never sent me a gift. What does that have to do with anything?
By the way, he's one of our best friends. We were both really, really close with Larry. And I know I've given him gifts that were completely unappreciated. I even gave him the first issue of Sport Magazine with what's the Yogi Berra on the cover in the catcher's position. This is from the 50s, signed by Yogi Berra, framed. I gave it to him, and we still joke about it. I go, do you know where it is?
But you know what I always say?
It's in the garage.
You know what I always say?
What?
The gift he gives me is what he gives me to do on screen.
Well, by the way,
which is the greatest gift.
You say that, but that is 100% true. I don't think either one of us would go, he's come to birthday parties of mine and not brought anything. But the fact he shows up, which is a big deal, they left the house to come to my house, that's all I need.
But I found that quite amusing that's what Dustin Hoffman said.
Oh,
He
my
didn't
God.
send me a gift. All right, let's finish this off because we're on a tangent now. So Larry falls back into reality. They kick him out. They say, you're not ready for here. And we're all still arguing. We're in the same, nope, not a lot of time has passed in our lives. We're still arguing about the money for the car. And all of a sudden, beep, 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 back. He feels, Gallagher sees the beeps. He's back. He feels his head. He's still bald. So he's really back.
Larry's
And
still
then-
bald. Which, by the way, I think that would have been a good out.
Correct. I agree with you. And then there's balloons and flowers. Don't anybody ever send me balloons. I hate the fucking balloons.
Well,
and
no,
Larry's,
balloons and flowers. It's the thought. Balloons kiss my ass.
yeah.
So
So
you might as well hire a guy to come do balloon animals in my room. That would
which
even be better.
might be more fun.
But by the way,
and Larry's,
that and a close-up magician. I'd love being in the hospital and there's a close-up magician.
there might be
getting the
somebody
mind
who
up.
goes around doing that as a
No, it might
volunteer,
be.
like Larry.
The world
Larry
is small
claimed that
but
he
big.
did.
Yeah.
So Larry's packing. Do you ever notice that people in movies, they never fold their clothes when they pack? And Cheryl's smiling at him, and she's in love with him again, and he wants to get the sex clearance from the doctor. And she says, "Do you feel different?" And he says, I'm a changed man. I'm a completely different person. And the nurse comes with a wheelchair, the orderly, Craig Robinson, and he wants to use the bathroom, and he realizes he's in the wheelchair. He could use the handicapped bathroom. It's locked. Guy comes out of the bathroom who's able-bodied.
Well, by the way, that's Wally Langham.
Langham.
One
and
of the
Larry's,
best guys ever. But Wally Langham, can I explain who Wally
Yeah.
Wally Langham is best. By the way, a lot of work and a lot of different things. I've worked with him many times. We're pals. But best known for being one of the writers on the Larry Sanders Show.
Okay.
He played, I'm just saying, why not?
Yeah.
Go.
And Wally Langham comes out, and he's clearly not handicapped. And he's like, well, I have to go to the bathroom. And Larry says, then you wait. Then you wait.
I didn't get that, but what's it a callback
That
to?
was callback to the handicapped bathroom thing, which was not even in this season, I don't think.
No,
I think that was in the season before.
I mean, he goes in, I would have liked to a little joke that he goes in wearing some sort of jacket, and before he goes to the bathroom, he takes it off and hands it to Cheryl. That would be a more, but I didn't get the ending.
Yes,
I didn't.
this was like not this season. It was the season before or the season before that with the handicapped bathroom, and the guy says to him, "Then you wait." With the stutter. Remember, then he tries to use the handicapped bathroom because he says he has a stutter.
No, that's the guy in the parking lot with the stutter.
Yeah. Then you wait.
No, Larry
then you wait.
does the stutter when the people say
right.
you're not
at the
handicapped.
Funkhauser testimonial. But then because the other guy said, "Then you wait." I thought it was a reach. You didn't even get it. And it's your show.
By the way,
it was a reach.
I did not remotely get it, and I'm like,
was a reach.
is this a callback to one of the handicap things?
It
'Cause
was.
We've done
It was a
it 2 or
callback.
3 times with people in wheelchairs. People who are,
But that it was a callback, and it was a reach of a callback.
And by the way, we're not supposed to say handicapped, and I want to respect it. What is it?
Yes.
It's a what is the term again? Well, just know.
I'll say the wrong term. I'll say the wrong term, whatever I say.
Publicly, I apologize. And this is not political correctness. With political correctness, to me, it's about respect. What do people want to be called? If you identify as a sailor, I'll give you a salute. I'll do the whole thing. I'm respectful to people. So I just want to say that I don't regularly use the handicap
funniest
thing.
use of that was with Fred.
Coming up. What?
Well, that's for a long time away. That's like season 9 or 10 or something with Fred with the parking. That was fucking hilarious.
But here's what I want to say. We're done with the episode, but I want to point something out, and maybe you forgot this. Episode's called The End. Larry dies, he comes back, and back to usual business. This was supposed to be the last episode of the series.
Of the series.
And
this is season 5.
So when we went out of this, 2 thoughts about this, by the way. When we went out of this, I thought, I knew the intent. We discussed it. It wasn't and called The End, and all the stuff that happened, the show was supposed to end there. Well, then at some point, shortly thereafter, he gets a great idea. He's inspired
Right.
Never doing the show for the money. We get paid, but it's not like that's why we're doing it. We're doing it because this is what we do, And so he gets this great idea and boom, we're off to the races again. But this was designed and supposed to be the last episode of the series. And it's ironic we did 7 more seasons.
7 more.
After this. But I also, because later on, when he falls in the pool, everybody thought, well, that was supposed to be it. And I'm like, no, that was never the intent. It's just sort of mixed things. Here's the thing.
The other interesting thing also is that montage wrap up. We've now done that several times.
No, we have, but it made sense when you knew, is what I'm saying, when we come back to it, that it's the last episode ever, supposedly.
Right.
And the other thing I want to say is the hospital scenes was the longest day
That's right.
I have ever worked. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not part of the crew. I'm not somebody, I wasn't in every scene, but I'm behind the scenes. My day, and it's the last day of shooting, so we could do this, 17 hours.
Yeah.
That was my day.
You know what? I recall 18 hours, Jeff, is what I recall.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Look.
I recall 18 hours, and I recall
18
it was
hours.
the longest. But, we shot, for example, that scene where you guys run into George Lopez, which is two episodes before this. We shot that day. The scene of Shelley in the hospital. We shot so much that day in the hospital.
Yeah,
were from
I know.
different episodes, and it
like
was
Lewis. I mean, all the
all that stuff was shot that day in the hospital. Yeah, it was 18 hours.
18-hour days. Now, for our listeners, you're lucky if you get an 8-hour day. A 10-hour day is the usual. And
I think a 12-hour day is the usual.
Well, no, I think 10 hours is if you're working with people who know what they're doing. 12 hours, it can happen sometimes. And then everything after that is crazy long, like
However,
I remember, okay.
When you do hour episodic, that's the kind of days you do. You do 16, 17, 18-hour days.
And by the way, there's no off weeks.
Yeah, when you're shooting Law and Orders and things like that, you're doing really long days. But when
people have days off because they don't work, they don't work.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that long, 18-hour days. I think it might be 12 to 14.
They're long.
Want to hear this? I'm going to tell you a little story that goes like this. The show Friends. Later on they didn't. And I know I'm friendly with a lot of the Friends. Okay. And I did Mad About You with, what's her name? Name the Friends ladies.
Jennifer Aniston, Lisa Kudrow.
Okay. So Lisa Kudrow, like myself, was a recurring character on Mad About You. So
Wait, can I just ask you a question? Was Mad About You multi or single?
No, multi.
It was multi.
Multi. So I'm in the kitchen. We're filming this in the kitchen, and I'm in with Lisa. I'm in the kitchen talking to her, and she said when they film Friends that they would work till 1, 2 in the morning. And she goes, isn't every show like, I'm like, no, that's horrible. That's uncalled for. That's insane. If you start shooting at 8, 11 is a long shoot. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours more because that's exhausting and pickups,
but that's just one day.
But I remember them, she told me later on, they said they got together, they negotiated no more of that. Here's the limit.
But the difference with a multi and a single is a multi, you just have one long day. In a single camera, you could have
rehearsal days.
In a single camera, you could have many long days. Where it's a multi-camera, which you shoot in front of a live audience.
But you're shooting probably about 7, and if you're not done by 10, that's just, and 10's a long night, and you're out there doing it. It's very.
It's the writers on a multi who have the long nights the night before.
No, to the right. Well, of course, writers always have the longest nights. I'm talking about as actors.
Yeah.
Because, if even filming one scene on our show, you really have to take a minute to get your energy because it's exhausting. Okay, how about this one? And we can end on this whenever you want to. When I did WALL-E, for example, the Pixar movie, and I worked 3 years on it, but I have these sessions that were like 3 hours. And I'm just reading words from a page. I'm alone. The director will give me notes, and it's just me and a microphone, none of the other actors, okay? And when I was done, I felt like I just played a football game in pads.
Well,
like
I
was
felt
sweating.
when I do things like that, like whatever
Oh yeah,
animated
you did
I've
that
done,
one Disney movie.
2 hours. 2 hours is it for me. After 2 hours, I have no energy
No,
whatsoever.
but people would think, and by the way, if you're really working it and you're really acting on the situation, doing voiceover work in a good movie, like a Pixar movie or a Disney movie, fucking exhausting. I mean, I was shocked because I thought this will be fun. I'll read it. Don't have to learn any lines.
It is fun, though. I love doing it.
No, but I'm not saying it wasn't fun, but it was tiring.
Well, what's also tiring is you're not acting with anybody. You're not getting energy off of another actor and interacting. It's just you in the booth doing your lines. And I find that more exhausting than when you're working with other people.
And here's a last piece of trivia about that. The most distinct thing about me, and I know this in terms of people, is hearing my voice. Now, my voice, the last 20 minutes of recording Wall-E, and I didn't know. I since then, I've had voice lessons because I lost my voice to learn how to do. I had to scream. My character had to scream and yell and react and blah, blah, blah. So I burnt out my throat so bad that before Wall-E and after Wall-E, my voice completely changed.
Didn't completely change. I remember your voice.
Early on, you watch the earlier episodes, my voice is much smoother. And now I have this hoarseness to it that does not go away. It doesn't hurt, but from Wall-E, my voice has become very distinct.
You know what I remember doing Bolt? I had a lot of running scenes. So there was a lot of scenes where I just had to do, it sounded like porn because I just had to do like be out of breath and just like all these, like over and over and over. It was just like porn.
Who played opposite you in Bolt? It was somebody cool.
John Travolta and Miley Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you spend any time with Travolta?
No, I that's what I'm saying. You do it all by yourself. I met him at the premiere, but
I was at the premiere.
You don't act with other people when you're generally, some do, but you generally don't act with other people. You just record.
And did you have a conversation with him or just agree?
Yeah. We had a little conversation.
Yeah,
we were a dog and a cat together. Of course we had a conversation.
But it's John Travolta who, he had... he was the hottest actor in Hollywood, big, gigantic star. He kind of faded, and then he came back, resurrected by Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
and he hasn't. Not that they're all great movies, but he has not stopped working.
He's got a great
after
career.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I mean, Hairspray and movie. Yeah, he's John fucking Travolta. That's all I'm saying.
And he could dance just as good as he wants.
Oh my God!
And with that, we're gone.
Oh yeah,
and
for season 5, we're done. Which, by the way, this is the end of our first season, based on the episode.
Of the first season of the history of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. And stay tuned for season 2.
So we'll see you next season.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.